Hi, my name is Alexis, and I ride an XT250 as my dual sport of choice. Do fuel prices have you down in the dumps? Well, do what I do and ride an XT250. With an amazing 76 miles per gallon, I'm never set at the fuel pump. All your friends will be jealous at the new thickness of your wallet.
What's up guys, it's Andrew at Motorcycles Off-Road, and thank you for my 26,000 plus subscribers and all of you guys watching that aren't subscribed yet. And hopefully this video earns your sub and you'll help us reach our goal of 30,000 subscribers. Today we're doing an XT250 review, and I will try to lay out all the details to help you guys make a more informed decision if this is the right bike for you. Now, this video has been in the making for 4 months, but I got injured about 4 months ago, and if you want to learn more about that or you just want to see some awesome free content, go check it out on the Patreon, first comment below. And there's tons of free full-length content there that I just don't put on YouTube. And lastly, if you want to pick up some cool dual sport shirts, check out my website, motorcyclesoffroad.com. I'll pin it in the first comment below as well. And let's get into the review. The XT250, Yamaha's only real production dual sport ever since they discontinued the WR250R about half a decade ago. Wow, that actually sounds weird to say. But yeah, they haven't sold the WR250 in almost 5 years. But today we're going to take a deep dive and a full review on this little charming motorcycle. With this information, hopefully you will find the true answers of whether this motorcycle is right for you. If you stick to the end of the video, let me know in the comments below so I can give you one of those hearts. As well as at the end of the video, I will go over some mods and upgrades that I think make this bike really great based on my experience. Real quickly, I had the XT225 in the past, but I'd say I quite like the XT250 over the 225 in some areas. And of course in this video, with detail, I'll explain why. But this XT here, you see, I bought in July of 2023 and I paid $3,000. At first you might ask, why would a 5'10", 240 pound man who frequently rides a Tenere 700, a DR650, want to buy an XT250? Well, for one, I love riding different motorcycles. I even frequently work 2 jobs and YouTube just to afford this pleasure. But also, every motorcycle has its own charm and unique personality. But down to the main reason, this was a great way to get my daughter into legal dual sport riding. As just an offshoot positive note, there's also a ton of reliability here. I've been working on a Trans-New Jersey Trail, which is a 4-day, 500-mile motorcycle camping trip, and my daughter was able to ride the XT250 and it performed flawlessly with no issues. And this is pretty tough terrain. So what makes it good for a beginner or someone who's 5'4" tall? Well, the XT platform has the lowest seat height of any dual sport today at 31.9 inches, bearing the TW200, which is 31.1 inches. But the TW is a different kind of bike all of its own, more of a farm utility bike. I could go more into that bike and compare these two, but today we're talking about the XT250. And if you want to learn more about the TW200, I did a full fleshed out review of that motorcycle in itself, and I will pin it in the first comment below for your viewing pleasure after this video. Also, another great point to make is the XT250 maintains the seat height with a formidable ground clearance. The new marketing fad is to add the acronym or letter S sign at the end of your model line, resulting in a bit lower seat height, but also sacrificing ground clearance. With the XT, this is not the case. So I painstakingly put this little chart together just to illustrate the point so you guys can see it in black and white exactly what I'm talking about. The XT250, having such a lower seat height, still maintains a very good ground clearance. Now this is important because this means when you go over a log or if there's rock, whether they're going to bash the frame or the swing arm or try to puncture a hole in your case, for off-road this extra bit of distance is important. And you notice that almost every one of these bikes, the S acronym is almost a linear scale of drop of ground clearance. Now the only slight difference is the KLR 650S, but it has no real ground clearance to begin with because, let's face it, that bike is more of an ADV bike and it's not really orientated to be aggressively off-road, especially given its weight. The XT250 is able to achieve this low seat height and still give you well-performing ground clearance. And if you're in a debate talking about bonuses to this particular dual sport, this is definitely a unique feature here and a strong point to make. But why is the seat height important? Women generally run a bit smaller in the inseam than men, and some people are just shorter. And there's no shame in it because we're all different, and having a shorter seat height can really help to build confidence and a skill set for man or woman. Not to mention, coming from a reasonable factory MSRP of $53.99 makes it pretty easy to find clean versions of these bikes used for a really good price. As I mentioned, I bought the one featured in this video for $3,000 cash, and that's not too bad. And because the XT has been around for so long, price and parts availability is also a huge plus overall. There has also been some changes to note over the years. Keep in mind the older gen XTs date all the way back to the 80s, but they're not like the same bike that we're talking about today. The modern 250s came into the market in 2008 and were updated with fuel injection in 2013, which in my humble opinion is the best model to look for, and I will talk more about that in the mod section and the real advantages of having this motorcycle fuel injection. But either way, this is a good point to know which year has fuel injection and what delivery system you're actually looking for to make sure you get stuck with the right bike. Next, don't be thrown off by the 5-speed transmission. For some people, this is a deal breaker. The XT225 actually had a close 6-speed, but this in most applications is having the same gearing as the 5 and 6-speed, the same ending ratios, just the gears are closer together on the 6. I would say the XT250 does pretty well with its 5. It's definitely not as pleasant as, let's say, the DRZ400 or the great use of the 5-speed in DR650, but that's mainly because those bikes are torque monsters, they produce more torque super early in the rev range, and they simply just have so much more engine to work with. But the XT does pretty good for what it has. You know what you're getting here. So as far as the XT, it is a more traditional 5-speed, but the bike doesn't seem too out of place. Also, my daughter did fine in highway speeds, but this is definitely not the bike you want if you have super long commutes, especially on like a freeway setting. Basically, if you need a commuter and you want to go off-road, for a lot of people I understand this is not an option, but I really think you should invest in 2 bikes. One for your mostly off-road days and one for your pleasant rides on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. As for power, Delcovic exhaust, ran a dyno with the actual pipe that I put on the bike, and it came up with 17 and some change horsepower to the rear wheel, which does actually make this the weakest offering in a dual sports section from the big 4, but that's something we all expect. This is not a high compression or performance engine, and after all, it's not really how much power these bikes make. They're all going to take you anywhere you need to go. And for someone lightweight or a beginner, there's no problem with these numbers whatsoever. That's all you really need. Basically, I'm saying it's forgivable here, and the bike never really left me wanting. As far as weight, the XT fits right in where you would expect. It's a bit lighter than its competitors in the market, but not by much. Taking Honda and Kawasaki at the middle ground, it's an unnoticeable 3 to 4% weight difference, whereas we all know the Suzuki DRZ400 is a bit on the beefy side. I'll make a little chart here for reference, and I'll also put the MSRPs here for reference as well. On the road, this bike fares pretty well. Yamaha has it rated at a top speed of 76 miles per hour, 122 kilometers an hour. On our trip with our mods, we did get all the way up to 80 to 82 miles per hour or 130 kilometers an hour roughly, just to keep up with traffic on specific roadways. As I mentioned before, you probably don't want to use this bike for long commutes, unless of course you build it out to do such things. If you wanted this bike to be your back to forth work commuter just for the gas mileage, you can actually do that, sure, no problem. But anytime that you start to modify something to make it better in one area, you're going to lose its abilities off-road, especially with something that has such a limited power supply. So you can either go one way or the other with this bike. But with it being a smaller and maneuverable dual sport, it could make a really nice city setting bike, like something in a city that you ride back and forth, maybe to the store and back, where speed's not so demanding. And in this case, you would never feel the high RPMs and the vibes of the thumper that you get with all these single cylinder bikes basically. My daughter did mention as comic relief at the start of the video that you can expect to get 74 to 76 miles per gallon on this bike. The interesting thing is the XT has been made with 3 different fuel tank sizes, but it seems the standard is 2.6 gallons or 9.8 liters, giving it a range of 197 miles or 317 kilometers with a full tank of gas. And when it comes to off-road, this bike is just as capable as anything else. Its saving grace, as I mentioned before, is it has a good ground clearance, and it's sporting a 21/18 spoked wheel set, which not only makes it great and easy to find whatever tires you need for your purpose. Spoke wheels are really the way to go off-road, and having the nice 21 up front, it doesn't sacrifice any ability to be able to hop over logs, rocks, etc. And let's talk about aesthetics real quickly. Mostly this bike looks like an old school dual sport, which is fine enough. It has this round headlight. You either like it or you hate it, I feel. Basically is the consensus online design is a lot of people have mixed opinions. Oddly enough, its predecessor, the XT225, had a square headlight. For me, it's fine. I don't really mind either way. I think they both look good enough for a $3,000 motorcycle. Though if I was to talk about my one gripe, it would be that front split fender. If you go to put any good knobbies on, like I did, they will rub against the back portion of the fender. Now you can take it off, but of course that's going to fling a bunch of mud over your air-cooled engine, which to say the least is not ideal. Of course that's counterintuitive to the whole cooling process. I wish they made some sort of adjustment from the factory, even a 15 to 20 millimeter level of adjustment. That would have solved my whole problem completely, but instead in this case you're forced to kind of make your own bracket or just leave it off. Lastly, let's talk about mods that we did to this bike. So I was kind of backed into a corner here. The previous owner butchered the exhaust and it sounded like complete trash, and it was running really lean. What they did was they basically gutted it. To fix this, I got a $200 Declavic exhaust and an EJK, which I had to just look up because I forgot what I paid for it, but that was another $250. The bike already had a K9 air filter, so I just followed the instructions on the EJK website of how exactly to run the low, mid, and high range. Man, this bike ran so much better and so much more aggressive once we did these three little mods. It was like riding a completely different motorcycle than from the hour or two before my daughter and I put on the upgrades. As far as suspension, I didn't do anything here. But if you wanted to take it heavy off-road, that's something you would definitely have to do. Or if you wanted to run it as a light adventure bike, kind of how we did. But just like with a lot of bikes, sure you can get by with the stock suspension. Although I was able to feel the metal on metal clang from maxing out the front forks, being some 240 pounds, so your results may vary. As far as height, at 5 foot 10 inches or 178 centimeters, I felt a bit cramped on this bike, and that was even after I installed high sweep bars and bar risers. I mean, it's doable, but if you're any taller, I would say look into a taller motorcycle. Now when it comes to fuel injection, I feel like that is definitely the way to go on this motorcycle. So that would be models 2013 and newer, and you have a crisp linear power band, which is really nice. The side advantage is, like I did, you add an EJK, which is just simply connecting two little tiny connections on the right side of the bike. Now it is pricey at $250 over jets, of course, but fuel injection definitely has its advantages. One would be elevation changes. You never have to worry about elevation changes. Number two, instead of breaking down the bike and getting to your carburetor just to change your jets, you can simply change the tuning right on the EJK, the little box they give you. That's a huge removal of hassle right there. And lastly, the thing you really should consider is that gas these days is just very, very poor. Most fuel is mixed with ethanol, and it will break down in time. This is less of a worry with fuel injectors. I don't know about you guys, but I've spent plenty of time opening up, cleaning out carburetors. It just gets old after a while. Also, quality of life upgrades. The foot pegs are kind of hilariously small, so I would pick them up on Amazon. Bar risers are nice. A high sweep bar is also nice. Mine, I also put a lithium battery, which saved a little bit of weight, but really I was having start issues with the old battery. And obviously this resolved the problem completely. But it does knock a good 5 pounds, 2 to 3 kilograms off the bike's total weight, so that's kind of nice. And lastly, tires, of course. I can link the ones I had. Actually, I'll link everything in my Amazon store, and I'll make a select list of mods that I would suggest for the XT250. Also, a rear rack is kind of a must too. Just makes everything more convenient. So I'll put all that in the first comment below. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. This is my experience with the XT250 and the XT225, and I hope it gives you some value. And as I said, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It helps out a lot. Now that I'm back, I'm going to try to do 2 videos a week for quite some time, because if you're anything like me, I'm looking for dual sport content, and there's a bunch out there, but there's not a lot that I really enjoy watching, only specific set channels, so I want to put more quality content out there for you guys. And as I said, if you want to really support the channel, check out the Patreon or go to the website and you can buy a shirt. But as we come to a close, I'd like to tell you guys, stay safe out there, ride safe out there, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. My name is Andrew, and this is Motorcycles Off-Road. Thanks for watching, guys. Thank you.